Chip Scoggins of the Star Tribune, a guy and writer that we have a lot of respect for, love his work. He wrote this week about Mike Zimmer's contract situation and why the Vikings should eliminate a said distraction in a season that is full of distractions. And it does make some sense. Makes a good point there. Adding a year to Zimmer's contract doesn't necessarily tether him to the team. I mean, if they do want to move on from Zimmer after the season, they just pay him out whatever his buyout will be for the upcoming years. It happens, right? I mean, just adds to the cash Zimmer's due if they do axe him, right? And hell, they did it last offseason when Zimmer was heading to a contract year in 2019. They're just like, all right, 1 year deal. That's why we call it a Band-Aid. So when everyone was in the street celebrating, it's like, oh, Mike Zimmer's extended long term. It's like, bitch, that's a 1 year deal. It doesn't really mean anything. Like the amount that they would have to pay Mike Zimmer to go away from adding 1 year deal on it is a rounding error for most NFL teams. Well, who knows with the coronavirus this year. Actually, that could be part of it. That could be part of it where NFL teams are certainly preparing for the major financial implications and ramifications of a truncated season, a season with no fans, a reduced revenue season. So maybe the Wilfs aren't willing to extend Zimmer just because if they have to fire him, they don't want to pay that. I mean, it's possible. It would be practical and pragmatic, but no. So even though we've said that Zimmer obviously doesn't care about coaching a contractor, he's even said as much so, I think it would affect the team, especially if they do hit some turbulence early on. So either consciously or subconsciously, players, especially players who are vested veterans, they have extended deals, like they will certainly be on the team for multiple years. They'll be like, you know what? We're 3-8 right now. I know that Zimmer's yelling at us on the Zoom machine, teleconferencing in, but you're not going to be back here next year, Jabroni. So I'm just going to tune you out. Get ready for PJ Fleck, whoever the hell the next head coach is going to be, right? But also, an interesting caveat that Chip pointed out in the article is about Rick Spielman. So he wrote this, quote, same thing with general manager Rick Spielman, who by all accounts also is entering the final season of his contract. Adding a few years to his deal makes sense too. So the important part of that was, by all accounts, entering the final years of his contract. So these guys are dialed in, sourced in. And even though Vikings HQ is notoriously tight-lipped, it's kind of like the Kremlin up there. I mean, if Spielman did have an extension in place, or at least agreed upon, like local reporters probably would have pieced something together, would be able to source that thing out, and I think that would have eventually leaked before the team even officially announced it. But also, I mean, as we've talked about, Spielman approached this offseason as a man with a lot of job security. Like, he was out there just like, BD Rick. I'm just like, whatever. Extended Kirk Cousins. He letting go of former key veterans like Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes and Linval Joseph, Everson for the moment and for the time being. Trading Diggs to Siberia, drafting 15 rookies, an NFL record. So all of those are moves of a man who's ready to oversee a reload on this franchise. And now a desperate general manager, and you've seen this around the league, where general managers who are just trying to save their jobs, Hail Mary, pull out all the stops, would have pulled off big trades for established players. Like, he wouldn't have traded Diggs. Like, he would have traded the equivalent of Diggs at other positions, right? Also, he would have probably moved up in the draft, trying to hit a home run on some of these picks, spent big money in free agency, just trying to eke out a decent year so that he could get an extension, stay around for another year, and et cetera. And also, I mean, trading up in the draft, trading picks for players. I mean, if you're going to be fired after a year anyway, if it doesn't work out, I mean, what do you care, right? You're not going to be around to make the pick, so it would make sense. Spielman didn't do that. I mean, Spielman drafted like he's going to be here for the next decade, which certainly is possible. But also, there has been some rumors that maybe Zimmer in the front office and even ownership don't necessarily see eye to eye. Maybe the front office does think that the Vikings have plateaued under Zimmer, and maybe the message is getting lost. Occasionally you do have to do that. Also, I think that if Zimmer didn't win the playoff game last offseason, the Vikings would have a new head coach right meow. And we've talked about it. Like, if the Vikings didn't win that playoff game against the Saints, I think that Zimmer would have been traded to Dallas. That's why Dallas waited so long to eventually hire Mike McCarthy. Hell, maybe Zimmer will be Dallas's head coach next year. Him working with Dak. It's like, Mike McCarthy could easily be one and done in Dallas, but now. So I actually do think that Zimmer is on thinnish ice, even though he is the third winningest coach in team history, even though he wins over 60% of his games. I mean, at a certain point, like, yeah, it's great to be good, but it would be good to be great, if you understand what I'm saying. So he even pulled the shuffling. He even pulled the shuffling the deck chairs and the Titanic move that most coaches do before there's potentially a change. Throwing some assistants under the bus is like, it wasn't me. It was my assistants. He did that with George Edwards. He did that with Jerry Gray. So I don't know. Or, I mean, with Gary Kubiak just like sitting there, chilling, waiting in the wings, doing his crossword puzzle, dyeing his hair. It's just like, yeah. All right. So maybe the team does see Zimmer's potential replacement on staff with the Kubiak contingent. So maybe it isn't necessarily all Gary Kubiak. Maybe he's able to outsource quite a bit of that work to Brian Periani, to Rick Dennison, to his son Clint Kubiak. Or hell, if Kubiak is axed, maybe he brings back Wade Phillips to be the defense coordinator, because Wade Phillips was the guy coordinating the defense when Broncos won a Super Bowl in 2015. So maybe Wade, who was kicked to the curb by the boy blunder, Sean McVay, maybe he gets the band back together. And then the Vikings finally move to a 3-4. Oh, it's all coming together. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But if Kirk Cousins does thrive again in 2020, like I said, I think Kirk Cousins had his best season of his career last season, as well as if the defense falters yet again, it is very clear who is responsible for what. Gary Kubiak responsible for Kirk Cousins. The team is all in on Kirk, and the defense has been all on Zim, just like it has been for the last 6 years. So maybe there is a break right there. And maybe they let Zim walk and then plead for Kubiak to take on the head coaching job, even though I don't think he necessarily wants it, but it's possible. Who knows? But yeah, like Chip said, it would make a lot of sense if they just put a Band-Aid year on Zimmer, just so, you know, the media jackals don't ask players like, oh, what do you think about Zimmer and his contract year? Or ask Zimmer, oh, what do you think about contract year? Zimmer would be like, I don't care. Yeah, so do that up so the media jackals don't have that ammunition to go after him. All right, so your thoughts, Zimmer, contract year, let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. If you want to support the work, pull us on the Venmo. Plus, give us a follow on social media as well. But the next time, Skull, production value.